Welcome to Flashpoint, the Fire Inside podcast, featuring leadership and team-building principles designed to ignite your inner fire and help you reach your full potential. On our program, you will learn from professional athletes, military and business experts, inspirational figures, leaders in the fire service, and other top achievers who have reached the pinnacle of success in their chosen fields. And now your host, international speaker and best-selling author, Frank Viscuso.
All right, we are here with former UFC champion and top contender Frankie "The Answer" Edgar. Frankie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh no, I'm very happy to have you. I'm very excited because, as you know, I've spoken to you before about this. It's my favorite sport. I love the UFC. I love MMA. I've been a fan. Since UFC 1. I've watched them all, and getting to know you over the years and watching you. I mean, you're not just my favorite fighter. You're a lot of fighters' favorite fighters, and I want to talk to you about that in a little bit. But more than 10 years you've fought now in the UFC, probably one of the longest careers ever. You've never been knocked down. You've never been knocked out. You've never been submitted. You held the belt for a couple years in a weight class that a lot of people thought you should not have been in because you were small for that weight class, but you were taking care of business. Talk to me about your career, a little bit about what it's like just being a guy that started out here in Toms River, New Jersey, and a few years later, here you are, the world champion.
Yeah, I never really fathomed I'd be in this position, honestly. Coming up, I was a fan of the UFC too. I probably watched the first or second. I remember 13 years old, 7th grade. I at my buddy's house watching it with his old man. And, of course, rooting for the wrestler. I wrestled back then.
Yeah.
But then it kind of went dormant, for a couple of years. You really couldn't find it. And then in college, it started coming back. Training through my whole wrestling career, I didn't realize I was actually training for my UFC career at the time because, wrestling is so intertwined with it. My senior year in college, the Ultimate Fighter show came out, and I seen some fellow wrestlers on there doing well. Actually, Josh Koscheck wrestled in the same conference as I did in college.
Right.
And, I graduated in May. I was like, I want to find a place to train. I found a local place at the time, and I think I fought maybe 4 weeks later and, kept it going, and here we are today.
It's amazing. And you fought about, like you said, 4 weeks later, and you fought for an underground in the Bronx, right? An underground division?
Yeah, it was, they call it an underground show because it wasn't sanctioned. Maybe a smoker show, sometimes they call them. It was in the Bronx on a summer day, a Sunday. I remember it was very, very hot in there. There was no ambulance. There was no weigh-in. We were going to fight just one 15-minute round, just 15 minutes ago.
Wow.
There was guys drinking 40s in the gym. It was an experience, but it was a good fight. The kid I fought actually was a New York guy. He had a big, the whole place was screaming for him. And I don't think I was supposed to beat him. He was supposedly going to the UFC soon and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
So I went out there and I was able to TKO him in like about 2.5 minutes. But I took a pretty big knee to the face and I ended up breaking my orbital bone in that fight, and didn't realize till I went to dinner later, blew my nose, my whole face just blew up with air. So that was my first experience, wearing the gloves.
It pretty much sums up Frankie Edgar, though, because, your fights are amazing. See, a lot of people, maybe they don't know this, but the element symbol for iron is FE, your initials. And you're known as the Iron Army, you and your team. And I think that's awesome. But if you watch Rocky, and I want to say it's Rocky IV with Ivan Drago. I remember Ivan Drago goes to his corner, sits down and says, he's like a piece of iron.
Yeah.
A lot of people compare you to Rocky. And I totally get it. I see it because it's about heart and determination. See, this podcast, what we're doing, the podcast, it's about this simple concept that at some point within a fight, technique gives way to heart and determination. It's about passion. It's about drive. It's about finding what you need within yourself to become successful, which really is a big reason why I wanted you on this show. But, you started out in Toms River, you get to 6-0 before you get a shot at the Ultimate Fighter television show. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, but the Ultimate Fighter television show, it's kind of like the Trojan horse, because at the time, UFC was not on TV. It was only pay-per-view. You had to pay to see it. Then comes this reality show where you have about a dozen or so fighters that are competing for 1 year, 6-figure contract. You come on to the show. you try out for the show, I should say. UFC, the President Dana White sees you for the first time. Joe Silva sees you fight. They like you, but then they do their interviews through Spike TV. You don't make the cut. And I guess it's because you weren't controversial enough. You didn't have purple hair, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, that's pretty much that's what I thought it was. But it was getting in front of them was definitely a good thing for me because then it led to me being a replacement when a fighter got hurt. So I guess they went to the archives and said, all right, this guy, maybe we'll give this guy a shot.
Well, and that's interesting though because they called you up to fight about a month later, and it's against Tyson Griffin. And at the time, he's one of the top 10 ranked fighters in the world. And you take the fight. When you take this fight, is there any part of you that thinks maybe I'm not ready for this?
Not at all. I mean, I knew that can't pass up an opportunity like that. I took the fight on 4 weeks' notice, and then actually got probably the worst sinus infection of my life during that camp. So I really only got to train 2.5 weeks for that fight. I ended up during training, I got punched in the mouthpiece in my tooth, and I got an abscess. So I had to get a root canal, and a side effect of root canal can be a sinus infection. And so I got one of the worst sinus infections of my life, and that was very tough to get through. But there's no way I could turn down that opportunity.
I don't even get out of bed with a sinus infection. I don't know how you get in an octagon. As you're walking down, and you don't even walk down the octagon, you run down the octagon. Did you run in that fight? I don't remember.
Oh yeah.
Why do you run?
It's from wrestling. In wrestling, we always run out. We never walk out, and I just kind of kept it with me.
Yeah. So you get in there, you have a great first round, great second round, great third round, but at the end of the third round, you get caught in a vicious knee bar. Looks like your leg's going to break. I'm pretty sure that the commentators are saying he's going to tap, he's in trouble, he's got to tap. You don't tap. How do you not tap?
I felt I won. I knew there was short. I think it was a minute left. I knew there was short time in the fight.
Right.
I knew I did enough to win that fight. I'd rather have to limp for a couple days or a week or a month than lose that fight. Especially what it took to get there and the effort I put in. I definitely wanted to get my hand raised. So it popped once or twice, and I said, all right, that's the worst that's going to happen. Let's keep it going. I was able to kind of work my way out of it a little bit towards the last 30 seconds, at least take the pressure off and wait it out.
And what's great about that, you didn't get paid much for the fight, but then you got a $20,000 bonus and your first fight of the night. How many fight of the night bonuses have you gotten so far?
Well, between fight of the night and performance of the night, since they changed it a little bit, I believe 9 or 10, something like that.
9 or 10. 10 years. And still going strong, still fighting at the top of your game, which is amazing. I don't really know of another career in the UFC that can match it. There's other guys that have, like Randy Couture, who's had amazing careers. But you've had wins after that over Spencer Fisher, Sean Shirk, Hermes Franca, top fighters that were all fighting for championships around that time frame or top contenders. And August 10th, 2010, you get a fight against BJ Penn, who is arguably considered the greatest lightweight in history at that time. I remember when I heard that you took this fight, me being a huge fan of yours, I remember turning to my wife and saying, I don't think this is going to end good for Frankie. And I said, honestly, I don't know that Frankie will get out of the first. I'm just being real with you. I don't know that he'll get out of the first round. I have never since this fight ever doubted you again because you beat a guy that nobody thought, I shouldn't say nobody. You thought you could beat, your coach thought you could beat, the people around you thought you could beat him. But most people that knew BJ Penn's career and what he's been able to do thought maybe you couldn't. And I'm sure after you beat him, he wanted a rematch. You gave it to him. Did you have to give him a rematch?
I mean, not necessarily. I'm learning now that no, I didn't have to back then. But
right.
I'm a kind of a company guy, I guess. And BJ at that point, what he did, everything he did, if anybody deserved a rematch, it was him. Actually, I came home from Abu Dhabi. I actually had a staph infection when I fought him the first time. It was the early stages, but when I got home, I ended up having to go to the hospital for like 4 days. I had ended up having MRSA, getting quarantined. It was a nightmare, but I come home from the hospital. So I'm home for maybe 2 days, I think, from this fight. And I got a call from Dana White. Yeah, we want to do the rematch. I'm like, man, can I enjoy this a little bit? And I was like, this is when I was having my second son too. He was due in May. In May. He's like, can we fight in June? I'm like, dude, give me August. At least let me go August. I'm with my kid. And we'll do it, and then I'm fighting in August.
So you got this belt. He already wants a rematch. I heard you once say he gave me a shot, he deserves one in return, or something to that effect. Which, by the way, it's the one thing about you, and I've told you this personally, that you're one of the most humble people I've ever met. And for a guy at the top of his game, a professional athlete who's reached the pinnacle of success, and you're still there for as long as you've been there, that's rare. And I'm glad my kids, my one son is here in the studio with us, with his friend. I'm glad my kids can see someone like you overcome what you've overcome in a ring, because life's about overcoming adversity. The thing about being a fighter like you is we get to watch the adversity. We get to sit there with popcorn in one hand and a Coke in one. We're not in that ring with you. But sometimes I feel the butterflies because it's you, and I'm thinking, all right, I can't get comfortable. It's amazing. I can't get comfortable when you fight, but I love watching it. When you brought that belt home, what did it feel like? I mean, your friends all probably wanted to.
Yeah. When I brought the belt home in April, I had the firemen and everybody met me. We did a little parade down at 37, and it was just wild. I've been striving to be the best at what I did for a long time, in my wrestling career. And I felt that I've always came up short, many times in my wrestling career. So to finally reach the pinnacle, the top of the sport I'm competing in was it was something special. And, I've been striving for it ever since. Well,
I'm telling you, it's been amazing. You got ESPN nomination for Best Upset of the Year when you beat BJ Penn. You give him the rematch. You beat him definitively the second time. And then you get a rematch against, up to that point, the only guy that's beaten you, Gray Maynard. I'm just going to flat out tell you, it's probably my favorite fight. Probably not yours in the first round anyway. First round, you get knocked down 3 times. He's a bigger fighter. He's got Randy Couture. He's got some legends in his corner. I remember one time he fought you. He's got Olympic gold medal wrestler Kendall Cross in his corner. I mean, he trains with some animals just like you do. But he knocks you down a few times. You take a broken nose. You come back and you tie the fight, which is amazing because I've been speaking for the past few years, mostly to the fire service, but outside the fire service as well. And there's a clip I show of this fight because I talk to them about being tough to overcome adversity. I talk about what my friend Matt Parr once said is, if you ever lose your will to fight, somebody who has the will to fight will control you. I talk to my son and his friends about the fact that anytime you want something in life, there's going to be somebody or something that's going to try to prevent you from getting it. This fight to me is symbolic of life because it's like, here's a kid that gets knocked down that you think's out. He goes to his corner and your corner man says one of the most amazing things. He says, calm down. We've been through this before. And I think that's something that I want to teach firefighters. When we show up and we have everything against us and we got a 3-alarm fire and people that are hanging out of windows, act like you've been there before. What's it feel like being in that position where you do get knocked down a few times, you take a broken nose, you're having a hard time seeing your fighter, but you never stop fighting?
I'll be completely honest. I don't really remember much of that fight. A couple other fights as well, but I know I look back and I watch it, and I know I'm listening to my coaches in the corner. I'm looking at them. In the fight, I'm hearing his instruction, and I'm doing everything they're saying. I think that just goes back to how I approach every training session. I'm always listening to my coaches. I'm kind of always doing the certain thing. So I was on autopilot and I was doing everything right. So for me, that's, I'm doing things right when I don't even know I'm doing them. And that's a testament to me and my coaches because we're always, have such a good vibe and we get each other very well. You got to trust each other. And when my coach, especially Mark, he says something, I'm going to do it. Even if maybe I might be like, I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to do it because he said do it. And I think I did that in that fight.
Well, so a lot of it comes down to training and preparation. You train, you prepare, you have muscle memory, you have the ability to adapt. You go to your corner, you listen to your coaches, you do what they say. Now, Mark Henry, here's a guy who competed as a boxer.
Yes.
Right? He owns a pizza place right now. I understand his pizza's outstanding.
Yeah,
right?
very good.
Pino's Pizza. Well, I hope to have him on the podcast too soon. But when I spoke to him one day, he told me that he didn't want to train you. Now, nothing against you. He just didn't want to train anybody.
Right.
And after meeting you once, what he told me was he says that you listened, you were teachable, and he just absolutely fell in love with you. And he thought, man, this kid, I like this kid so much. I want to help him. And he's been with you for 10 years now.
Yeah, he's been with me since day one, pretty much. He didn't coach anybody. I'm the first guy he ever coached. Yeah. And luckily, Steve, my wrestling coach from when I was a little kid, and he's my partner now at Elite Wrestling in Toms River, he's cousins with Mark through marriage. And he actually reached out to Mark, hey, can you work with this kid? Because his son was wrestling for Steve at the time, and I was coaching his son. Okay. And after one of the practices, he came, brought his mitts, and we started hooking up, and kind of just been doing it ever since. And we obviously escalated more and more. Now he coaches some of the best fighters in the world, and he's a sought-out coach, maybe one of the most.
Yeah, I agree with you. You are, when you win your fights, you always shout out to Toms River. I know that you're real close with your friends. Your friends from high school are still your best friends today. I know you're loyal to your coach, you're loyal to your team. Loyalty is important to you, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Loyalty is something it's the backbone of everything. If you don't have loyalty on someone, on one person, you're not gonna have loyalty on anything. If you don't have loyalty to your goals or loyalty to your family, things are gonna start to unravel very, very quickly. And loyalty is a trait that means a lot to me. No, that's awesome. Chael Sonnen, one of the most talkative guys in the UFC. And I listened to him tell a story about you one time, because he said, this is why Frankie Edgar is my favorite fighter. I don't know if you ever heard this story. Did you ever hear why you're his favorite? Maybe. Let me tell you what he said, because this is pretty good. Because I thought it was just about your heart and your determination and all that. And I know he loves the way you fight. But he said, Frankie Edgar's not just my favorite fighter. He's a lot of fighters' favorite fighter. But here's why he's mine. He's co-headlining an event with you. It's one of the Gray Maynard fights. He just finished fighting. He's walking into the locker room. You're warming up, getting ready to come out. As he's walking in, he sees a kid decked out with tap out stuff. And he goes over and he gives the kid a high five. And he says, who does this kid belong to? And his father standing right there. He says, I'll bring him right back to you, I promise. He picks the kid up and he brings him backstage to meet the fighters. And he brings him in a couple rooms to meet the fighters. And he opens up a door and you're getting last minute preparations from your coach just before walking out. And he says, Frankie, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. And you said, what is it? What do you need? And then he said, I'm just bringing this kid back to meet some of the fighters. Well, you invited that kid in, took some pictures with him, signed some stuff for him. He said the kid was on cloud nine. He said, I don't think there was another fighter on the roster that would have done that just before the biggest fight of his life, the way Frankie Edgar done that. How does that make you feel? It makes me feel good, because it's not, stuff like that goes on, it's unnoticed stuff. And stuff that I'm not looking for attention that gets noticed is cool, It's cool, right? Yeah, for sure. And I don't mean to be that way. I'm just that way. And you're very, that's why I told you, you're different than most of the pro athletes that I've known. Not that I've known that many. Right. But you're one that's easy to have a conversation with. How about criticism? How do you deal with criticism? And specifically social media. Now, in social media, I see some fighters, some athletes of any sport. I see people in the music industry just get bashed. This never happened before. Like on Instagram, they'll make comments. How do you deal with stuff like that? It used to bother me early on. Just the social, it's just a different world we live in today. It gives people voices that maybe shouldn't have voices. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it makes us very accessible. So it's unavoidable. Now I just hit that block button and I keep it moving. I don't even let it affect my mood. I can't let someone else take that energy from me. I used to, it would bother me. I'd think about it for a little bit. I would never lose sleep over it ever. But for that 5 seconds, that would bother me. Now I just hit block and keep it moving. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's probably the best way to do it anyway. You've been climbing back, trying to get another title shot. You've had a chance at an interim with Jose Aldo. Very close fights you've had with him. You had an opportunity at one point where it looked like you and Conor McGregor might fight for an interim championship. When he had a choice between you and Chad Mendes, you're in shape, you're ready to fight, you're ready to go right now. Chad Mendes is on a hunting trip, 20 pounds overweight. He's got, 10 days or so, and he chooses Chad Mendes. There's a lot of people that thought that Conor McGregor deliberately avoided you because you were the tougher fight. Is that the way you feel about that? I think so. I think he's conveniently
kind of picked some guys and had his way up the rankings. You know, I don't want to knock the guy because, you know, he does deliver when it's time to deliver. He's probably the best marketing genius in this sport.
Very entertaining.
Yeah, very entertaining. You want to hear what he has to say next, and he does deliver. You know, he'll sit there and say he's going to knock a guy out in the second round, and he does do that.
Right.
But you know, I would have loved my shot with him. You know, I think my style just gives him fits, and you know, it's kind of unfortunate knowing that he's going to be one of the most you know, recognizable names in our sport. You know, for a very long time, and he was around my era, and I didn't get to fight him. That bothers me a little bit. But
do you think he'll come back? Do you think he'd have a chance? I mean, let's just say things line up. You get that 45-pound title.
I think there's a way. I'll never say die, and you know, I'm not at 45, but I'll fight him 55. I'll go up to 70 to fight this guy. You know?
Yeah. So in 2016, UFC 205, Madison Square Garden. My wife and I are there. You come out, and the whole garden starts chanting for Frankie Edgar. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's amazing. I've had people cheer my name in other arenas, but something about the garden, being home, and having, you know, a lot of my close friends and family there was that one will stay with me forever. I had to, even all week, it just didn't feel like fight week because I mean I'm in the city, you know, pretty often. I used to train at Henzo's, and that was in that same vicinity right by the garden, and I'd be walking around like, man, oh, it's fight week, man. I gotta get my mind right, you know, and it was just a special time.
Yeah, Henzo. Yeah, my son Tom, who was sitting here, he had met Henzo Gracie once before. I think he stopped by the studio and he took a picture with him too. So again, he's pretty approachable. 2017, you're right. Yeah, you fight Yair Rodriguez, a Mexican fighter. He is again another top fighter, up and coming guy. And before the fight, I remember his mom says that she had a premonition that he was going to knock you out with a leg kick in the second round. And you were asked about that, and you said, well, my mom had a premonition that I was going to be a doctor, and that didn't work out. You totally dominated him. And afterwards, you showed a lot of respect for him, but you talked about how there's levels to this game. And what do you mean by that?
You know, there's levels to this game is you know, if you want to be the best, you got to be good everywhere. You can't be just dominant in one area because someone that's better than you is going to find that area that you're weak at and take advantage of it. And that's kind of exactly what I did. You know, I still think I could have stood with him, but the takedown was there. I you know, see my opportunity and knew once I got on top of him, I was going to be able to do that to him. So, again, he's very young. I think they pushed him along maybe a little too quickly, but he has ability, but he's got to get those other levels down pat if he wants to make it to that next stage.
He's another guy. He's great to watch. Fun. He's entertaining. I agree with you. They just kind of moved him there a little bit too quick. I'm going to ask you about some fighters right now. I'm just going to put out a name, and maybe you can tell me a little bit or just your initial thought about him. One being Corey Anderson, one of your training partners.
Yeah, Corey, he's a phenomenal kid. You know, I met him on the Ultimate Fighter show when I was his coach, and he ended up moving out here to us in Toms River, and he is a big guy, and he's you don't usually see big guys work as hard as him. He is, his nickname is 25-8. Now it's overtime because 25-8 is a little redundant, I think. But yeah, he's a phenomenal guy, great teammate, and the guy puts in more work than anybody.
His Instagram's amazing.
Yeah.
It seems like he never does anything but work out.
Yeah, he definitely does work out a whole lot, and he documents it pretty often on Instagram. Yeah. We bust him a little bit about that, but yeah, he's got a bright future. He's still a young kid, and we'll just see how far he can take it. 205.
And then you have Marlon Morales.
Marlon came here back when I was getting ready for. He came with Edson Barboza when Edson and him were helping me get ready for Benson Henderson probably back in 2012. Mm-hmm. And he's liked it here, moved out here as well. And he's just a very, very good friend of mine. One of my main training partners every day. Super good attitude. He was the WSOF champion. Now he's fighting in the UFC. He's fighting John Dotson actually November 11th. And sky's the limit for that kid. He's one of the best athletes I've ever competed against.
That's going to be a great fight. You mentioned Edson Barboza. What about him?
Yeah, Edson too. He came to help me get ready for Benson Henderson back in 2012 along with Marlon, and he's just been phenomenal to have. He's probably one of the most dynamic strikers in the UFC. I call him, he's like a human weapon, and super athletic. He's a good guy. Both of them are family men. You know, they both had kids here in Jersey. The kids are Jersey kids. I just mess with them now about that. And yeah, just good to have around.
That's awesome. How about some other fights that aren't on your team? How about GSP?
Yeah, George I know very well. We shared some, coaches. Obviously, he trains at Henzo Gracie's pretty often with John Danaher and Henzo. So we crossed paths, quite a few times early on when he was still fighting, and now that he's coming back. But George is class act. One of the best to ever do it. I think. He did everything the right way. He trains properly. He's respectful. He's classy. I got nothing but good things to say about George.
That's good. I'm excited to see him come back as well. How about John Jones?
John Jones may be the best to ever do this, and it's just unfortunate that he kind of can't keep his nose clean. Whether it's, still speculating. I don't want to speculate, on what happened with or what the results of all this is going to pan out for him, with this last USADA violation. But, it just seems like where there's smoke, there's fire, and he keeps finding himself there. And it's a shame just because, personally, John's a very nice guy to me. I've always got along with him well, and I really think he has all the ability in the world. And if he is guilty for taking steroids, I don't think he ever needed them.
Yeah, well, you're probably right with that. So there's talk about maybe that he took a supplement that was tainted with an illegal substance. I want to talk about that right now, actually, because you wear plenty of other hats. You're not just a fighter. You're a commentator. You talked about your wrestling school in Toms River, elite wrestling. You talked, or maybe you didn't talk about this yet, but you have a UFC gym as well. That's in East Brunswick?
North Brunswick.
North Brunswick, New Jersey. And now you have a supplement, the Iron Army supplement line that's coming out. Shirts, hats, supplements. I have one of them right here because this one is called Intra Reserve. And first of all, I've been drinking this as I've been talking to you today, but I've been drinking this for a few days. And it tastes great. And maybe you could talk about this, but I read something on the back of this that it basically says no banned substances. But I think what's amazing is where this is mixed, there's no chance of it getting cross-contamination with banned. I mean, first we should talk about this. USADA, they ban a lot of substances. There's probably aspirin you can't take because there's banned stuff. It's certain things that we take right over the counter. Am I right?
I mean, for the most part, aspirin's okay, stuff like that. But there's definitely a lot of stuff that you just got to be careful because you don't know.
You don't know.
It got to the point where I was afraid to take supplements because you're hearing, and whether it's true or not, but you're hearing guys like John Jones and others where they get popped positive for USADA, and automatically they want to say they took a tainted supplement.
Right. It's the go-to answer sometimes.
Right. And granted, I believe it is true because there are facilities that use banned substances and they don't clean off their equipment and they throw something that's not supposed to have that banned substance on the same mixer and then it gets tainted. So it could happen, and I wanted to kind of take that guesswork out of it. It's too scary. This is how I make my living. I don't want to get popped for a test or a steroid test when I'm not even looking to cheat.
Right.
So I decided to partner up with a couple guys and come out with this supplement company that is not made in a facility that allows banned substance, so it kind of takes the guesswork out of it. But the Intra Reserve is a recovery shake or drink rather, and it has 15 grams of carbs, has beta alanine in it, electrolytes, I think sea salt, and just a bunch of amino acids. I used to go around and take 1 scoop of amino acid, 1 scoop of powder, and I used to have to take beta alanine. Now I was like, you know what? Those are the 3 things that I like to take while I'm training. I put it all in one thing and made it easy for myself.
That's great. And you're supposed to sip it throughout your workout or throughout your day?
Yeah, there's really no wrong time to take it. I like to take it about 5 minutes before, 15 minutes before. I'll sip on it and then drink it through the rest of my workout. The beta alanine gives that little bit of the tingle feeling. I kind of like that. It helps my blood flow, gets me ready to go.
And your website is ironarmy.com?
TheIronArmy.com.
TheIronArmy.com. I picked up a shirt and a hat from there, a shaker along with this product. So,
and we're going to be coming out with a much more, other product as well, protein and some other things. But right now, this is what we have on the market.
Great. Listen, I got a few rapid fire questions.
All right.
All right, for you. Nothing difficult. But what's the best advice anyone's ever given you?
The best advice is just simple. If it was probably from my father. If you want to be successful, you got to work hard and constant at it. And it may not have been so much as that he specifically told me, but he showed me every day. I got up for school at 6:30 in the morning. He was gone for 2 hours already. And he'd come home from work, eat dinner, and then go back to the office to work to go bid some jobs. So I've seen it every day, and that definitely was instilled into me early.
How about bad advice? Anyone ever give you your worst advice?
You know, I'm trying to think of worst advice someone gave me. I don't think I pay attention to it. You know, so if it was something bad, I really never listened to it. Hopefully,
Yeah.
You know, or nothing bad enough that caught up with me.
You know, you mentioned your father. Your father told you something about fighting, when you can and can't fight when you were in high school, right? What was that?
No, if someone hits, he told me, if someone hits you, you can hit him back. But you cannot start it. You know, he said, if you fight, you better take your chain off.
That's great. And also something about your mom, right? If they say anything about your mother.
Yeah. When I was not high school. I was I believe in first grade, and some kid would say something about my mom every day, so I'd beat him up every day. And the cops actually came to my house when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, kids talk about my mom, you know? The guy's like, well, listen, you can't do that. I said, all right.
That's funny. How do you overcome adversity?
I think overcome adversity is kind of just stick to the grind. Put your head down and just do it. Don't complain about it. You know, that's the easy thing to do. And, you know, I find myself doing that sometimes, you know, dealing with injury, dealing with just anything. There's always adversity in every fight I've ever had to this date. In my camp, I have to deal with some kind of adversity. And I want to feel sorry for myself at times. I want to feel bad, but I don't. I try to just put my head down and still, you know, keep my focus on the goal.
I mean, I think that I can recall definitely 2, maybe 3 fights where you fought with a broken nose.
Yeah, yes. Luckily, it's been pretty good for
I should have brought it up.
Few, but yeah, you know, my nose is, you know, some people have glass jaws. I got a glass nose.
Was there any like one defining moment in your career that you said, I feel successful. I feel like I've reached that level I've been trying to get to?
You know, I mean, getting the title was definitely probably the mountaintop, but I think when I fought Sean Shirk, and you know, he was a former champion. I think he just lost the belt to BJ. So, you know, I knew if I can beat him and he was a champion, he held the belt, there was no stopping me from being a champion myself. So I think that was eye-opening for me.
For 10 years, you have had a hunger to want to fight the best fighters. You've never looked for anything except to prove you're better. How do you stay hungry?
Yeah, I still love this. You know, it doesn't feel like work to me. You know, I get beat up. I feel tired just like everyone else, but I don't dread it. I still look forward to it, and I want to be the best still. I still feel like I have a lot in the tank.
Is there anything that keeps you awake at night?
It's just this crazy world we live in. You know, you're seeing this stuff happening all the time, and you know, you have young kids, and that's probably what, you know, keeps me up at night is just the uncontrollable stuff.
I mean, we should mention that this, you know, mass shooting just occurred in Las Vegas last night.
Yeah.
And my wife just said to me this morning, she said, I'm scared for our kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Senseless act like that. Yeah. You know, Vegas is, I mean, I'm in Vegas probably more than anywhere else. I have a lot of friends out there. It's scary. You know, you keep going out with your friends and family to a concert, and you got to worry about getting picked off by somebody. It's just it's horrific.
It's terrible. It's what it's come to. What's really bad is that it doesn't shock us anymore when we hear about it. I mean, it's as sad as it is. It's just like, oh, you know, it doesn't shock you, and you think another one's going to happen. Right.
Yeah. It's like you know, in the Middle East, that's how they must, you know, in Israel and some of these other countries where it's every day. And they're numb to it, and now I get it because it's kind of become every day over here as well.
It's sad. It's sad to say that. What habits do you attribute to success? I know you have the work ethic and the drive, but what are like some of your daily habits that you do when you wake up?
You know, my daily habits is I just try to make sure when I'm in the gym, I'm trying to compete to the hardest of my ability, to the best of my ability. I feel like if I'm going in there, like a lot of guys do this, they go in and they think being there is enough. Punching, like I always say, you can't just punch your ticket and all right, you're here for the day. You got to be in the moment. You got to be focused. Otherwise, you're just going to be turning the wheel. You know, and in the sport has evolved so much over the years, and the reason I think I've been able to stay with that evolution is because of that reason, that I'm not in the gym just punching the clock. I'm in there trying to improve, trying to focus on things I need to do every day.
How do you celebrate success?
With a hamburger? No, usually I celebrate success just by enjoying my family. You know, I'm not you know, I have my family and I have my fight career. You know, my friends are sprinkled in there as well. But that's it. I'm not really too flashy. I don't really go and do anything crazy, but just hang out with my family.
So now you have an upcoming fight with Max Holloway again for a title. If you beat Max Holloway, you'll be the 4th fighter in UFC history to win championship belts in 2 different weight classes. You've wanted this for a long time. What do you think about having this opportunity 10 and a half years into your career?
Yeah, I've been wanting this ever since I got that first title. I always knew that I could be a 2-division champion, and here it is. This is it. And I know this is a huge opportunity in front of me. Max has been on a tear. He's a great fighter, but I like my chances, and I'm gonna say I'm not gonna be denied. I feel good about it. I got a long camp ahead of me, and I'm ready to attack it, and I'm ready to get this job done.
And I'm sure that you have a game plan and you know how you want to go forward with it. But he brings some skills to the table. He's a good striker. Is he someone that you would try to strike with?
Yeah, I at this point in my game, this is my game plan for every fighter. I'm going to come forward, I'm going to throw punches, and if a takedown's there, I'm going to look for it. If I take you down, I'm going to punch you and look for submissions. And if you stop my takedown, I'm going to stand up with you. I mean, that's just as simple as that. So I feel like I can do every part of the game, and if any opening he gives me, I'm going to jump all over it.
There was a couple months there that it looked like the fight might not happen, and it was the holdup on his end. What was the holdup? I'm
not 100% sure. I can't really speak on his behalf, I guess. But I think they were just ironing some contract issues out. I know a lot of fighters, once they get the title, they want to try to get a little bit better contract, which is understandable. So I'm pretty sure they got all that worked out.
Well, that's good. I know that, in recent times, people have been trying to negotiate the better deals. And I guess it has a lot to do with Conor McGregor, and he's come in and he's kind of called his own shots. But I mean, let's be honest, Conor McGregor pulls in some numbers too. He gets some eyeballs looking at that TV, and he does some pay-per-views.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he brings in the money, so he deserves the money. That's kind of how it goes.
What's your prediction for Holloway? I know you don't often give him, so
yeah. I'm going to get my hand raised. I'm just. I can't really say how it's going to go down, but I know I'm going to get my hand raised. I feel good about it.
I'm looking forward to it. Good luck.
Thank you.
And if there's any chance I could be there, we're going to be in the audience there cheering you on. But if
awesome.
not, we'll probably do what we typically do is have about 100 people over the house
cool.
and do it from a distance. Frankie, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I had a pleasure talking to you guys.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.